We've got a really exciting panel. Like, this is the panel that I've been looking forward to. We've got some really amazing speakers that are joining us. And I loved when the day started with Tom Ito, and he said just 12% of consumers want hotels to operate like before the pandemic. And that means 88% of consumers want something different. And I think technology is definitely driving a lot of that change to help facilitate it. So I'm really excited to welcome our different speakers. What we won't be talking about are some of these topics that feel like we've addressed them over and over, like staffing shortages. Like, yes, we have a staffing shortage, so we're not going to dig into that deeply. Inflation, yeah, we're aware of it. We're not going to talk about it. Supply chain issues, it's hard to get stuff into your hotels. But those are the topics that it felt when we're doing the preparations that it's been over-talked about. But I have many, many questions that I want to talk about. But let's bring in the different people on our panel. So Dimitris from Wyndham. We have Stuart from Forbes, Margitte from Mews, James from SiteMinder, and Shane from Microsoft. Hello. I gave you the impossible challenge to sit according to the slide, but I have to sit here. This is If you have any questions throughout, we have a Slido running. So if you go to slido.com or slido.do, you use the code MewsUnfold. The last 15 minutes, we'll try and switch over so that we can actually answer some of your questions that you have. So you can either scan that QR code or memorize the code from this slide. So the first topic that we want to tackle is innovations that will have a big impact. That could go in many different directions. So we have a few themes here. The one that I and everyone else in this room is probably most excited about today is AI, Chat GPT. And I'd love to start there. I know it's at the bottom of the slide, but it's the one animal I'd like to get out of the way. And I'd love to start, I guess, with Mr. Microsoft and actually understand Microsoft. that is you. What do you think the impact is going to be for hotels, for hoteliers, physically?
Well, I mean, it is the most transformative technology of our time. And if you go back in time, you have, AI began in the 50s, then you have machine learning, and then you have deep learning in the last 5 years. And this is not something new. This has been something that's been a building block over the last probably 30 or 40 years. And then it popped. It popped earlier this year. And Chat GPT, if you're not familiar, is kind of generative AI. So it moves from, people historically have done like search but now it understands human intent, and it generates content off human intent. So you can ask it a question, it will respond. I mean, my kids, they all know it. High school or university kids, their professors are like, you can't use it, or you can use it, you need to annotate it. So it's now become kind of a mainstay in the consumer vernacular. But if you think of hospitality as a whole, it will have a huge impact, I think, number one, in the booking funnel, where people can just say, hey, I'm going on a family vacation. What are the top 3 destinations for me and my kids? And my kids are under 3 years old. And it'll boom, 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 and it will just generate the content link. Can you book it for me? Yes, I can book it for you, and move on that. But essentially, I think for us as consumers, you'll have your own co-pilot that's in your life that is taking care of you. And then at work, as an employee, you'll have your own co-pilot that will help you ensure that your job is much easier. It will respond to emails. It will understand intent. It has empathy. It could say, hey, I want to generate a marketing program for Gen Zs around these resorts, for these type of individuals. And it will spit out the content in near real time. So if you think of it today, I mean, just the magnitude of Chat GPT 1 had about, probably 200 million parameters around it. Chat GPT 3 was about 190 billion parameters, and Chat GPT 4, which is out today, is probably trillions of parameters. So it's not going from here to here, it's going from here to here.
Yeah.
So I think as technology is the most transformative that will impact our industry as travel as a whole significantly.
So if I was a marketing director from a hotel, I put my query in, does it lead to huge commoditization of marketing effectively because everyone is going to do similar things? Do we reduce creativity?
Yeah, I mean, we don't reduce, I mean, it's a co-pilot, so it does 70% of the work, 80% of the work, and then you add in kind of so it's helping you make better digital decisions. But again, we have the wisdom of being in this industry for many, many years.
Yeah.
And then how do we bring our human knowledge and layer that on top of it to target the right audience from a marketing perspective? and then, and the results, and how do I iterate? So the model is constantly learning as well, which is fascinating. That's what's called deep learning.
Yeah.
And it's adjusting, and it's also learning about how I write and my intent, and then it's creating content around that as well. So, essentially, if you think of like Siri or Alexa, they're kind of, I'd call them dumb AI agents. They're not very smart.
Yeah.
This generation of Chat GPT, it's brilliant. They're brilliant.
Nice.
And if you haven't used it, you should try it.
It's good. I use it daily for our business, and you've got to take it, and then you take your own creativity that you then take away from it. You don't trust it blindly, but it's fascinating how good it actually is at having given you answers in that sense.
Yep.
Yeah. So you talked about the booking funnel. So obviously SiteMinder sits next to you, and James, I'd love to just understand, is it something that you guys are freaked out about? Like, how are we going to control this new engine that's coming out, or is it something that's really exciting actually?
No, I think it's super exciting, and it's an opportunity in many parts of the funnel. And it's interesting listening to Sean there. He's talking about how consumers are using it, how hoteliers are using it. And when I first got my hands on it, I'm like, how can we utilize it to enable hoteliers to do their job better?
Yeah.
So it's like you're creating a new website, but you need that inspiration from a content perspective. So I've tried it out. I just take a list of amenities from a hotel and drop it in there and say, give me content, and put a bit more flesh around it. And it comes out really well. It's like, well, this is actually a really good, solid foundation. You can say, well, here's your content. Yeah. You can amend it. Then I said, translate it into Spanish. And then I'm like, okay, that looks Spanish. I'll send it to someone Spanish and say, hey, is this any good? But as you say, that was at the 200 million mark, and now at the 2 trillion mark, it's obviously improving. But there's so many ways that I guess we can utilize it as technology platforms to enable hoteliers and accommodation providers to work smarter. So, and give them additional information and intel on how they can better market and sell their rooms.
Yeah.
So that's pretty exciting for us.
Right. So Stuart, if you're looking at the other angle, like the customer angle and how people are booking, what are you most excited about if you look at this trend? Is it something that you get excited about?
Yeah, a lot of our client base is in luxury, and human connection matters. But even if you're not, if you're at mid-scale or even economy budget, the key is when you have your guests, how are you creating unique experiences for them? Those could be digital. How are you differentiating? Because with Chat GPT, right, you as a user are going to specify things that are more personalized for you. So how do you make sure your hotel brand, the name stands out, that I as a consumer want to include that in my search? I also think we tend, like humans, we're kind of binary where it's Chat GPT and then traditional search goes away. If you think about historically print to online when Google came up, this wasn't a light switch, everybody went to digital, print shut down, there was no print advertising. It played out over a decade or 2 decades if you include the mix, and we're still with print. And I think the same thing's going to happen. I think ChatGPT will be a profound shift, but there are times when you're going to want to search more broadly. I also look at it as a force multiplier. My wife works for a purveyor, a wine retailer. CEO asked her, one of her responsibilities to do the Instagram post. So she used to research different wines and the brands and the labels where they came from and come up with something creative. She's been using Chat GPT since it came out, and it takes her about 60 seconds, and then she quickly validates it. Now, she hasn't told her boss, and I told her not to, so it might free up quite a bit of time for your team to focus on the higher priority tasks of how do you create a great experience for your guests.
Thank you. So Margitte, what will the impact of this be in actual operations? You've obviously come out of technology and hotel operations. Do you see that it will have an impact on how hotels actually operate and run?
Absolutely. I think the most important thing, though, is, and even though that I love to hear all of your examples, is the actual translation bit. So having been at reception, engaging with guests is one thing, not necessarily knowing where the conversation is leading, whilst being served up all of those great insights, but how do you then weave this together in a human-to-human engagement? So I think on one hand, having access to these data points or those insights, it's great, but how do we really operationalize it? How do we really translate it? And I think this is now from a partner, from a vendor, from a technology point of view, I think this is where we as an industry need to learn to put ourselves perhaps a bit more in the shoes of the hotelier, of the receptionist, and see how that then goes. I think there is a lot of us that stand from the side and have best of advice. I do think indeed that it's a great tool right now to further personalize or even hyper-personalize any experience. But it's the translation, I think, that is the missing link right now.
Yeah, because looking at you, like we're obviously we're sitting on this immense amount of data, and you heard the story of Carrie-Anne this morning of getting hacked and the data. And should we be putting guest data into Chat GPT at this point, or should we say no, don't do that?
No, I mean, I think this is just from a Microsoft perspective. OpenAI is the company that Microsoft invested in over $20 billion starting in 2019. So now we've taken their platform, we've embedded inside our cloud with AI for ethics, security parameters. So yeah, so I would not, unless it's inside an enterprise grade system, I wouldn't mess with your consumer data. No, not at all.
Just wanted to get that message out there. The guest data is still the most critical piece that we have to protect in the end, because it is very sensitive. And I get calls daily, and I'm trying to figure out how do they get access to it. But it's terrifying who can call you and email you nowadays. Right. Yeah. So I'd like to switch to the other topic, which is a shift from functional to inspirational products. We heard Tom speaking about experiences, not things. We've housed people in bedrooms for a very long time, but I think there's this real shift towards people wanting something more than just a bedroom. Dimitris, is this a topic that lives at Wyndham? Is that a big discussion, or?
Yeah, I mean, before, thank you, because I did ask your IA to help save my marriage, and said and said buy her flowers, and now my wife thinks I've done something wrong. So yeah, thank you. But yeah, I mean, it's Wyndham is an interesting. We're the biggest, we're the world's biggest franchisor, right? We've got 9,100 hotels, and we've got 24 brands, and please do not ask me to name them, because that's going to be embarrassing. So it is always a challenge to when you have so many brands and you are expanding in so many countries, to actually keep the guest experience. And I heard all throughout the day, and I've been hearing all the conferences I go, people talk about luxury. But remember, luxury is 7% or 10% of the world's population. Not everybody can afford a Six Senses with $2,000 a night. So where we fit in the hospitality ecosystem is we're the leaders in economy and the budget and the mid-scale. And it is very difficult for us to actually standardize the experience, because all those franchisees, it's a different experience if you are in a Ramada in Wisconsin versus a Ramada in Lucknow in India. Although the brand, the signature items are the same, the experience is different. So in the franchise world and in the hospitality world, I think we are going away from standardizing. That famous word about brand standards. After the pandemic, our book of brand standards went from here to down here, because we realized that it's not just the brand standards, it's about the experience, and it's about how you make people feel. And this is something that only people can actually achieve and can actually make happen. We talk about what is the essence of hospitality? It's people. We talk about the circle of trust and how we lost people and people are not coming back to hospitality. Why? Because we broke that circle of trust. We furloughed or we fired thousands and thousands of people. And now, when people are coming back to our hotels to stay, they don't have people to service them. And we cannot replace them with robots. No matter what we do, they still need that smile, because hospitality is an industry that is people for people. So standardized experiences, I get it. Unique experiences, I get it. Luxury, I understand it, but it's only 10% in the world. So for us, our responsibility, as far as Wyndham is concerned, is how we actually work with our franchisees to still deliver an affordable travel and an affordable holiday, and actually build on the experiences that the customers need. That's what we do every single day. So
nice. You talked about brand standards. I wanted to just dig in a little bit deeper. So you said we've got these massive guides, and then we've shrunk them down to bare minimum, but there's more brands out there than ever before.
Yep.
How do those brands still stand out? How do we, as a traveler, know what to book and what to get?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the 5 biggest hospitality companies in the world, then you'll notice there are about 150 brands. Brands need to have a meaning. You know, brands cannot be just a name on the wall and a flag. They have to have a meaning, and this is where you work with people. Education, education, education. You educate the teams. You educate what your brand stands for. What are your brand values? For example, we started 5-6 years ago, and we take, as a brand standard, we take all our team members through human trafficking training. Why? Because it is one of the key values that we've got as Wyndham. You know what? It is important that your brand actually stands for something and is not just a name on the wall. Mm-hmm. And to me, no matter how many brands you have, if you don't have that meaning and purpose attached to that brand, there's no point. You know, the brand is just an empty shell.
Because yesterday, we said at dinner next, so I had a lot of time with this man, and it was very fascinating, and you said, how do you figure out what are the things that make up your brand?
Wow, yeah, I promise I'm not going to use the word lifestyle because it's been so overused, and you know, your lifestyle, I mean, seriously. I mean,
you might be afraid of my lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. So we actually rehearsed that in terms of the way we dressed. So I'm not going to use the word lifestyle. I think that you see the niche in the market and what exactly people are looking for, and you just create a brand, or you buy a brand for that matter, that actually fits that need. When we decided, we bought a brand in Central Europe last year called Vienna House. That was a brand that we didn't have in our portfolio. It made a lot of sense for us, that whole European hospitality and that whole Austrian hospitality that we were missing. And we bought it, and we're growing very fast with it. Why? Because we realized that it actually fills a niche. So it's not buying brands for buying brands or creating brands for creating brands. It's actually finding consumers that they would be willing to buy that and create that brand. And that's how the automotive industry, you know, they have electric cars, hybrid cars. They've got X1, X2, X3, X4, X5, X6. We're not that different. Yeah. We're not that different. You find the consumers, you build the brand, and then you put it in the market, and you know what? Then you take it from there.
Thank you.
I just say that the very question you asked about the proliferation of brands is almost answering, you know, imagine if we had only 5 brands, just as an extreme example. The proliferation reflects this personalization, this recognition that there are very different types of people, different travel contexts, and needs for brands at different times that fit different needs. So I look at that in a very positive way. And I haven't only worked in luxury. So before this, I worked with Wyndham. I was with Shane at Microsoft across the entire industry, not just hospitality. And I think there's this kind of competing realities out there. The first is just from a pure financial real estate investment, labor scarcity and labor costs, and trying profitably as an asset class while also trying to deliver a great experience. And so what that's done is it's squeezed in a lot of ways the humanity or the hospitality out of what all of us are passionate about. And the only way to kind of resolve that conundrum when you have kind of this shortage of labor, higher costs, a need for a financial return, right, is to lever innovation and technology. And that's, personally, that's why I love Mews, because Mews is providing that kind of flexibility to do the things you want to do. Chat GPT is going to be like a force multiplier. And so what I love in our industry, and I work with a lot of startups, is the innovation that's helping change that dynamic to allow you at scale, even at economy budget, because all of us, what's different after the pandemic is we all want this self-actualization, personally, professionally, in ways that are small and profound in our daily lives. And I think there's this setting back now to say, even an economy budget, what are the things that make me happy and make me kind of have love for all your brands?
Yep.
So James, what does that mean? How do you get that image out there on the internet to attract those travelers that are looking for their experience? If you're a hotel here in Amsterdam, what should they be doing and what should they be changing?
I think, you know, I'm trying to move away from that sort of point-to-point productization in the SaaS industry. So, you know, it's very easy to say, oh, well, if you want to sell your hotel in Amsterdam, you have to be on booking.com, hotels.nl, you have, these are the channels, and you really should focus on direct. But I think as an industry, and a lot of these people in these rooms go to a lot of conferences where they hear that story quite a lot. I believe that the next, as we're talking about the big impacts and the big next big bet in hospitality, is ensuring that SaaS platforms like ourselves are taking our own inspiration from other brands, other technology brands within the industry, be that from the smartphone industry or smartwatch or otherwise. So, point in case, when I wake up in the morning and the first thing I go to my phone is there's a list of things that it thinks that I should be doing. Right? These are the apps that you regularly go to in the first thing in the morning, and here's your calendar, and off you go. Likewise with my map app if I'm driving, or if I get in the car at 6:45, it says, oh, you're going to the office. And it's already routing me there, and it's already telling me about those potential problems or opportunities on the way, right? Like it tells me that there's a McDonald's where I can get breakfast, or and I think what the software or SaaS industry for hospitality has provided over the last 15, 20 years has been solving problems with, or providing functionality for specific needs, right? Whether that's connectivity, PMS, direct booking engine. And I think there's a real opportunity with the technology coming out from Microsoft and others with Chat GPT, but others, and third-party data that we can now consume, to be able to provide inspiration to that general manager or revenue manager. And it kind of comes down to three things that we talk a lot about personalization as well, right? We've talked a lot about personalization and personalization for the guest. And I think there's a real opportunity for personalization for the hotelier as well. So understanding the platform, understanding what role this person does, what their usual tasks are, and we're trying to provide your next best step within your role in your day. So from a general manager may open their platform and, hey, look, here's your usual reports that we think you want to see, and here's some opportunities that we think that you should be looking at, and which will be very different to what a revenue manager sees to what the front desk sees. Yeah. And starting to really give that strong value back. So there's a personalization, predictive analytics, as I said. I guess a really good point is Jordan was up here earlier. He talked about his check-in process, right? He's flown 10, 11 hours from LA. He's got to the hotel. Ideally, that PMS, and it may well be yours and it may well do it, they might not have ticked the box. When they've checked in and says, hey, look, room's not ready, but here's 3 options you can give to this guest, right? We have these upgrade options. They can go and book a massage if they would rather, or they can suck it up. Those are the 3 options we've got, but we're trying to help give you the next best step for this particular situation for this guest. And, that's a small impact. If I look at our own platform, we should be in a point where we're saying, oh, by the way, demand from West Coast to US has increased into this region by 13% over the last 10 days. And these are potentially the routes where you could go to actually, I guess, market and position your property, your product for those types of guests.
And are there hotels out there that actually do that today? Because that's the thing we talk about. But are there hoteliers that are really digging into the data and then adjusting their digital strategy to attract those types of customers?
I think not quite at that macro level. Certainly, it's coming out of the pandemic is a great example where we went into the pandemic. Obviously, the only travel that we had was domestic leisure. So everyone's, Jesus, where did all of our domestic leisure reservations come from in the last 2 years? My direct website and my core distribution channels, right? Yeah. And I'm going to market to those types of people, and I want to find more channels like that. Right, so that's at a much bigger scale, and as you start to come out of that, and we get back into more of I guess a new normal, if you want. If we get into what travel used to look like, and we certainly are in the vast majority of regions, even in Asia now, then we start to see the strategies of distribution changing, people getting more of that international travel. But I think they're looking at it closer, they're understanding the impact. So that was quite a lesson over the last couple of years. And so, but realistically, technology needs to help to kind of point them in the direction of this is what you should be doing, this is the next best step.
So we've captured this traveler, and then Margitte, like, they've now come into the hotel looking for this experience. What technology, or how do we make sure that they actually get that? They don't just get the bedroom, but they actually get the full stack experience that they're looking for.
So I think there's a couple of things here. Once that we are ready to give back to the guest and to give that inspirational experience. On one hand, it's connecting the dots. So we are sitting on this big pile of data. Great. To be very honest with you, I would be very interested to understand as well who here is able to actually do something with the data. And I think it's on very many different of those events that we speak about actionable insights. Well, what do they look like? So I think when it comes to actually providing back that experience to the actual guest, that there also should be the ability to read the data yourself, to really understand the dashboards that have been presented. Secondly, I think as well that if we want to get to that personalization, that requires data entry. So again, I remember running on the floor. I was a receptionist at Four Seasons, doing tons of things at the same time, and I had sticky notes all over the reception desk, tucked away, or in my pockets. And at the end of the day, if I didn't forget, I would put them in and add them to the guest profile. So where are we today in making it easier, whilst on the fly, actually not losing out on those very critical data points, because we engage with one another and we actually learn from that. I think that's also something that sits there. So then we get into the assumption, and I think probably threading a bit of like walking on thin ice, that's the thing I want to say. So we're getting then in the assumption stage that we're getting to the famous, I just had 2 glasses of Merlot, so I want to have a third one. Well, again, coming back to connecting the dots, if you sit at the bar in the evening with me, as of 10 o'clock, I'm done drinking wine. So where is then connecting the dots and seeing the actual guest behavior, tying that to indeed the time of day, and therewith going beyond that what we assume that the guest wants. So coming back to your question, Matt, I think that right now, in order to have all of those great initiatives, those great technologies, creating that experience for the guest requires us as an industry to observe and to really see, I think, before we get and add yet another layer of technology on top, to really see that what we have, how can we really utilize that? And it sounds probably like a little bit like a duh kind of thing, but I truly believe that we have a lot at hand already, and therewith truly equipping our teams as well on site.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I do think on the, I think as an industry, we're still in a little more reactive mode. So it's like, when you think of a consumer and their journey, once they hit property, the tech there basically is a mobile key, and then it's self-service. So how do you, with your consumers, you engage with them on a human-to-human level, but this younger generation, how do you digitally present them with content while they're in journey to make their journey a better journey in a proactive way? So it's kind of like this journey orchestration, and we do see a day, and in our industry, decentralized ID, which means that I will own my data in the future, and that's coming pretty soon, I think. The technology's there. It's a matter of corporations, governments, and all that. But I walk in the hotel, I have my AI assistant, it's my data, and I walk in, and the AI assistant of the hotel, those two are going to be talking together to orchestrate my journey based on my reason for being there. So that layer of tech is here. How do you adopt it, and how do you move it forward, and then how do you really personalize that journey and drive more ancillary revenue out of that consumer based on what their journey is? But that's complete white space for our industry today.
Because how do you walk that line of, do I need to give my access to the data to the hotel operator, and then they can use it? Like, we're all panicked about our personal data being shared, but I also am very excited about the service I could get.
Yeah, I mean that's Web 3.0. That's where it's going. This is the next generation of blockchain, and and I will only permission this brand with this data that's relevant for this interaction, and then I pull it back. It's tokenized, so it goes away. So this is where it's all headed, and I think it's a super powerful for individual brands because they can get that consumer to go through specifically their brand.com, more so than going maybe potentially through an OTA. So how do we get them, and how do we, and cookies going away, how do I control my first-party data? And if you transact at a Starbucks, that data, the minute your transaction goes, it goes right into your consumer profile.
Yeah.
When you dine at a restaurant, at a hotel, where does that go? In the ether today.
Yeah.
So how does this industry really embrace technology that exists today? Because the technology ramp is this, the adoption ramp is kind of like this.
Yeah.
And as we know, I think the industry as a whole, being in it for many years, all of us, it traditionally is behind. So how do we make, with the technology, that ability to make those leaps forward are easier and easier now as we shed away kind of our legacy systems that are out there.
Because I'm going to start with you, and I'm going to go to you right after that, but I always look at the big brands as almost slowing technology innovation down because they're so stuck with their legacy platforms. So do you think that's going to really dramatically shift where the independents will have a front foot because they can change technology so quickly, or are the brands going to overtake the independents because they'll make the right decisions down the line?
I'm a big fan of, big eats small, but fast eats big. I mean, fast eats big. I mean, the fast companies that innovate will swallow up. Now, the big ones will move, and they will move, but they have challenges just due to sheer size. But the smaller companies have that ability to move much quicker and be far more successful. It just takes big brands. I think it takes a long time.
Yeah,
there's no question. There are multiple year journeys on making decisions around this swim lane on this tech stack.
Yeah.
There are multiple year journeys where there could be multiple month journeys for someone else.
Yeah, and we need to remember back in the 60s, every housekeeper would do 13 rooms. 40 years later, exactly the same story.
Yeah.
You need one housekeeper every 13 rooms. So that's one reality about our system and about our industry. The other thing, and I'm fully on board, we are not as fast as we should be in the adoption of technology. And there is another challenge if you think about it, and I talk a lot to young students at hospitality schools in Europe, and they're really worried that technology will actually replace hospitality jobs. So if you're a concierge at a hotel and you can ask a platform to give you the best restaurants in the area, you don't need the concierge anymore. So that guy feels that Amazon, being a truck driver for Amazon, is probably a better job for him. So we need to be extremely careful how, and I fully agree, we need to be fast because one thing I've learned in South Africa, be fast, be first, or you're going to be food. So that's what my Zulu friends taught me, and they're absolutely right. I almost became food twice. So be fast, be first, or be food. But then you have to realize that the human element, and again, I'm very passionate about this, the human element in hotels are still very critical. So how do you symbiotically work with technology, make sure that your team doesn't actually reject it only because they are worried about their own jobs, but actually embrace it? And this is the job that we all have to do. How do we take all this amazing technology that is coming on board and say, do not worry. It's actually going to work in parallel with your lives. We're not going to replace you with, somebody's going to say, tell me where the best restaurants are. My daughter did an internship. I was trying to get my daughter into hospitality. She wouldn't get it. She did an internship 3 months ago in Barcelona. Thank God, not a Wyndham hotel. So she called me and she said, "Dad, I'm so proud. Hospitality is the best job in the world." And I'm like, "What happened?" She said, "What are you doing?" She said, "I'm an experiences officer." I'm like, "That doesn't sound very legal. What does that mean?" Anyway, I called my friend who's the owner of the hotel. I'm like, "What have you done to my daughter? What is an experiences officer?" "Oh, she's a receptionist." And I'm like, "Why do you call her an experiences officer?" "Oh, I couldn't get people to apply for receptionists, and I call them experiences officers. And I've got 20 CVs. That's amazing. So we have to learn. I would never have thought. I mean, eventually she found out she's a receptionist, and now she's really moody. But she's never going to work in hospitality again, I think. But it's so important. That actually is a small example of how the young generation, we need to change the back of house. I mean, what does back of house? We need to make sure that technology gets embraced by our own people so we have a future. Because at the end of the day, what guests want? Good bed, decent shower, clean room, and then you add all these great experiences and you've got a winner.
Well, and just a quick note, we did a lot of research on frontline workers in all the different verticals, and hospitality was one of them. And what we learned globally is the employees felt that hotel companies invest more in consumer-based technology than in technology for them to make their life easier. So they want it, and how as an industry do we give it to them to make their life easier?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
I was going to say, one of the most profound shifts that's going on right now, in the same way that prior generations, hospitality was more formal, it was kind of more staid, and then younger generations, people wanted things that were more authentic, down to earth. There's a generational shift that's going on with social commerce. And the younger generation, it's funny you mentioned restaurants, so a senior vice president of Google, not somebody junior, in the last year, let it slip out that when younger folks, 18 to 24 in this particular case, were looking for a restaurant to eat to lunch, they didn't Google it, they didn't use Google Maps. They went to Instagram, they went to TikTok. So when you think about this rise of social platforms, it took Facebook almost 9 years to get to 1 billion monthly active users. TikTok took 5. So the famous videos killing the radio star, well, video is going to kill some of the traditional channels. And the same reason why you once said, why do I need a website? I've got people at my contact center. Wait, why do I need a mobile app? Why do I need to have an Instagram account or have a Facebook ad campaign? Or why do I need something like WhatsApp to be able to chat with my guests? 10 years looking back, whether you talk about creator economy influencers at scale, that's where young folks are going, and we need to understand where they're going and be there. You're going to look back, and that's just going to be a distribution channel. Already in retail today, 60% of people look for inspiration, right, in social media. And I believe Focusrite and Arrival, which is Douglas Quimby, who's very revered in the industry, projected within 2 years, TikTok, even if TikTok gets banned, someone else will, is going to usurp the existing channels where people look for travel, inspiration, and experiences. And so the question is, how do you embrace that? Because today they're marketing your products, your services, your brand as influencers. When posts become directly bookable, the way you can do now in social with retail, and that's coming, there are a lot of startups working on that, right? They become kind of decentralized points of sales and distribution. So these are things you don't have to panic and say, oh, tomorrow I need to figure it out, but be attenuated to it. Look at where the world is going, because absolutely the younger generation is looking to make decisions based on people's whose curation they respect and people they know, friends and family, and I want to know what your specific and all of your recommendations would be for a restaurant, not what's on TripAdvisor, et cetera. Those companies were born 25 years ago, many of them. That, in the internet age, that was great at first, but that was before the iPhone. And if you think 25 years ago to go on the internet, you went through a dial-up line at home. Your phone was a push-button phone in your mobile. Dubai still had mostly sand on the strip. So I think this is a huge opportunity. You see technology players like Mews, right, like SiteMinder coming up to enable what we all want to do, which is I want to be able to book through people who I respect and be able to do that directly, not mediated through a traditional OTA.
Because like if you look at China, I think if you look at the direct channels that people that book directly on the website or through the direct booking engine, social is the number one. And we're far away from that here in Europe, but what are they doing that we're not doing that should hotels be doing today?
Yeah, I would say, and I think the gentlemen are here, just fair disclosure, I have zero financial or personal investment in the company, but Hopper is an OTA you probably haven't heard of that much in countries in Europe yet. What Hopper has done is they figured out how in travel, which is lower velocity, right, lower frequency than, say, retail or fashion, they absolutely directly, openly, the CEO says, we've copied the innovation in China. China is the pioneer in social commerce. the models the way to engage and be sticky. Instead of paying for performance marketing like Google or Facebook ads, they reinvest the money in ways to make their growth viral in their own customers in return for benefits. So if you do one thing from my comments, I'd say Google Focusrite, PH at the beginning, not F, Focusrite 2022 Hopper, Hopper CEO interview. And you'll understand what they're doing. They grew almost 500% in 2021 when travel was racing back. The #1 downloaded OTA app in the US wasn't Airbnb, it wasn't Booking.com, it wasn't Expedia, VRBO, or STR sites. It was Hopper. And so ask the folks that are here, they have figured it out. They started in flights, they've expanded to hotels. I, as a hotel person, don't love OTAs, right? But there's a balance in distribution. And every big brand, like a Wyndham or Marriott for their loyalty programs, as well as independent hotels, should look at what they're doing and think, how do I apply that appropriately for my guests to become stickier, not just when they're on property or when I'm trying to book, but how do I make them engage with me throughout the year?
So I missed the distribution. I guess you can't stay behind on this topic. Like, what should they be doing?
I mean, you've called out a great one there. I mean, Hopper's doing some great things in the US, and we've seen their expansion over here. You can't keep doing the same thing day in, day out. Many of the major brands that we all know are basically fighting for the same guest in the same space. That's creating competition for your inventory, but it's if you're also working in that space, you're working in Meta, you're creating competition for yourself as well. So, it's basically making your bids more expensive when everybody's fighting for the same guests. So absolutely spread out through the likes of Hopper, who are doing it through very different channels. We'll probably get more into the topic, but Airbnb, whereby, I think by their numbers, 70% of their stuff is direct to brand. So they do very little in terms of marketing through Google and what have you. But also open up to different geographies and have a look at who's starting to travel more. I did hear an interesting one from Vusa Gertz a couple of weeks ago. He's here somewhere. I'm sure he's speaking at some point.
He's actually right up after this.
Right after this, he might even
Every
talk
time someone
about
says
it.
his name, we're like, what are they saying? It's a Dutch name. I'll get
It's
it right
a Dutch
after.
name, but I probably didn't. I probably
I
murdered it. Right, let's be honest. But right now, one of the largest traveling regions is China. As it's coming back, it's going to take a bit more time. They're having constraints from an airline and a pilot availability perspective. But by September, back to 80%, and hopefully end of the year, we're starting to see a lot of that travel back, and understanding how we're marketing to those types of guests as well. And then after that is you're looking at India. It's a larger nation, a smaller percentage of traveling population, but in the next sort of 10, 15 years, these are the people who we need to look at in terms of who are going to be starting to fill the hotels around Europe.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the time. We've got 12 minutes, and I like my timeliness. So I'm going to go around the panel and ask every one of you, what should we be investing in? And that can go quite wide, looking at the panel that we have. Then we have some Slido questions, so let's see where they take us after that. But let's start maybe here, and then we work our way to the end of it. If you are a hotelier today, what should you be investing in 2023?
I'd be investing in use cases around Chat GPT that drive better productivity of my staff. Help my staff.
Fair enough.
I mean, very simply, I would be remiss not to say technology. Ultimately, I don't want to, I'm not going to sit here and fly my own flag, but I think there's so many great technology and technology partners out there that can, solve problems for you today. I think just make sure that their vision of the future, whoever you really are investing in and partnering in, are those that are really enabling your team to do their job better, and not just solving a problem for them, but actually pointing them on a path. And I think that's really where we want to make sure our technology is going.
Margitte?
I would say to recommend to look at your any kind of format loyalty program, and then indeed with the likes of the technology that is at hand to enable that. And what I would encourage people to start thinking about loyalty beyond the four walls of the hotel. So if we start to create experiences, trying to become that household name, yes, think about that earning and redeeming at the same time, instant gratification. Put yourself in the shoes like, okay, yes, I am having indeed my points that I have earned during this stay, but tomorrow I'm not staying actually in the city where I am living in a hotel because I can go home, but I actually want to redeem those points towards a Starbucks visit. So how do I widen the experience that I've had in a property so that I really, really connect myself, I create that loyalty towards a brand, and do I think, oh, I need to pay for that, instead of thinking, oh, I take out my bank, my wallet, thank you. I actually pay with my XYZ branded points. So I would encourage everybody to start thinking differently about loyalty if we want to service a true experience beyond staying just in a hotel.
Thank you. Dimitris.
I agree in everything, and I agree to what you're planning to say. But people.
That was AI.
Number one, people. People. That's the number one thing we need to invest.
Love that. Stuart.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've touched on them, but the people, the differentiation, I want you to close your eyes and imagine your property or a property you've stayed at. And imagine it's sparkling new, it's clean, it looks gorgeous. Imagine somebody coming in with no human connection, without your people, without something unique, even digitally. There's a place for all technology, self-service, so I'm not saying that that isn't there, but the question is, what creates connection for your guests? Part of that is, like Shane said, that you're missing kind of the digital journey as well in parallel with the human one on property. And then I think social commerce, Chat GPT, things like Mews that enable you and your team to free up time and capacity with the labor and the colleagues you have to deliver again on that people. When you said that, I'm going to date myself. There's a famous movie from the 70s called Soylent Green.
I'm younger than that, so
okay.
Sorry.
But for another time, over drinks at the bar later, perhaps, we'll tell the story.
Nice. Let's see if we have any questions on Slido. And if there aren't, then I just get to indulge even further. So let's see if we move across to Slido. Oh, there are questions. Great. What is your thought on ChatGPT's extensions of OTAs? Will OTA dependency increase due to AI?
Well, they're already doing it. I mean, they have a tremendous amount of data scientists there. You know, Expedia announced. I mean, the CEO of OpenAI is on the board of Expedia, so they've been at it for a long time. So they're well ahead of the curve. So, and you know, how does the hotel industry, the internal hotel industry, catch up on that? So that puts your foot on the gas.
So do you think if Expedia is the first to really get on this, will they overtake Booking in Europe? Because Booking is by far the number one. Is this a way for that dynamic to flip?
Maybe. It's like Bing and Google. I mean, it's like you can, small little increments they can gain over time. But Booking's probably doing the same thing.
Because have you seen, you've just mentioned Bing, have you seen a tremendous impact on Bing recently just because of the AI and the people?
On our integration of Chat GPT, not tremendous, but I mean, half a point of market share is billions of dollars. So, well, I'm not at liberty to say.
Okay. I think you want to respond to that.
I just add what's interesting, because the OTAs are also big legacy, mature companies. The way they seem to be applying it is aligned to kind of the constraints of their current business. Yeah. What's interesting is some of the people that were seminal in the e-commerce in the 2000s of the OTAs, Paul English, Shane was on a panel with him, who co-founded Kayak. A number of the people that started the OTAs back in the 2000s are working on stealth projects or next generation OTAs where they may be using OpenAI to completely approach it differently. And Shane and I also know somebody else that's working on a model that's like that. So the disruption may come from there. And then there are startups too that are trying to enable people to book directly through social posts, which can become the next generation of OTAs through influencers at scale.
Yeah.
Nice, thank you. Let's see what else we've got. What is the main challenge for core back office systems like a PMS when delivering customer-facing digital experiences? You know I'm going to go to you. Margitte?
Yeah, I truly believe the actual execution thereof, and therewith indeed being the main challenge. So you have on one hand, you have graphs, data is being read by the executive team. Then you have really the receptionist, the reservationist that is engaging. How do we bridge that? How do you really make sure that that data is extracted and made available in such a way that the interaction, what you were mentioning as well, the human-to-human interaction remains real, remains true, remains genuine.
Yeah.
And I think that is what the biggest challenge is. Yeah, we can sit on a great heap of data, but if we can't really do anything with it,
Yeah.
that sounds very black and white, but if we don't use it properly, better said.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dimitris?
No, I think because we cannot get enough people back, right? And we heard that we use all sorts of means and media to bring people back. Training people in technology is going to be very critical. Technology cannot be seen as the enemy. It cannot be seen as a blocker by the people that we bring back. Technology needs to be embraced. So we have a duty of care as international hotel companies to educate the people that we bring back that is not bad to use, new technologies. It's not life-threatening or job-threatening anymore. When people left us, and they went Prime Now, right? They work for Prime and they work for Amazon, and they realize that technology is not that bad. We have to follow the same trend and say, okay, come back. The human element of hospitality is still valid.
Yeah.
It's not just technology is going to replace everybody. We have to build that symbiotic relationship between the human element and technology. That's why I believe Sven is right. We as hotel companies, we've been slow in adapting technology because of fear internally. Our own people were afraid of it, and we were scared. Oh my God, if we oversell technology, people will just leave us. And to be honest, it actually happened. So now we have to bring them back, but we have to sign a new contract. That technology is not as bad as we thought. Actually, it's an enabler, it's not a life or a job security threatening exercise.
Well said. Let's go to the next one. How often do you challenge your current vendors and processes to stay current and relevant? Do you want to take that, James?
Me? We get challenged all the time as a vendor.
How often do you get challenged is the question.
Yeah, me personally, no. It's incredible when Chat GPT comes out and all of a sudden, there's over the course of a week or so, there's a couple of notes in my inbox saying, hey, James, long time no speak. What are you guys doing with this?
Yeah.
And that's just a really easy example. And otherwise, it's like, hey, I heard about this OTA that does X, Y, and Z with dogs. When are you guys integrating to that? So, for us, it's really about a prioritization, and everything that we do, from a development or an integration perspective, is really backed up by research. And your team will know we bug them all the time from a research perspective, and hopefully vice versa, right? Working with the other platforms within our ecosystem to make sure that what we're developing is kind of in line with what the rest of the ecosystem wants, and getting the same feedback from customers. So, I think there's a frustration quite often from hoteliers so why can't we have this yesterday? But from us, there's a real process of, I guess, prioritization and understanding what's going to deliver the most impact quickest, the best impact quickest, and we do stay very true to that as much as possible. But I don't know if Dimitri has a hotelier's perspective on it.
No, I mean, it goes back to the vision, right? And I see another, which is very relevant to this question. What are the biggest reasons for resistance?
That's a great
I think that, it's us, it's people, You need visionaries in the hotel industry, and there are plenty. So we need to bring the new leaders on board on the hospitality industry. Remember, something that we tend to forget, and I have 4 lives every year. I'm like a cat. I have first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter. If I don't make first and second quarter, my life is just gone. I better look for another job. So, I'm actually 59, I look 180 years old because of all these quarters that I have gone through. We still need to make profit. And we do not, it's not like the bad companies that it's all about profit. We employ thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Hospitality is the biggest employer in the world. So we have to remember that we have another duty of care. Keep these people employed. And it's nice to be disruptive. It's nice to be a pirate in the Navy, and I like all that. But we have to still make profit because we have a duty of care to all those people to keep them employed. So yes, we love change, we love to change things, we love to be disruptive, but at the same time, we have a duty of care of thousands of employees to keep them employed so they can pay their kids college and they can buy a better house or a new car, because that's what we do. You know what? It's not the bad capitalists that it's all about Wall Street and you have to make profit. We have to make sure that we keep these people employed. And how we do that? We do it with caution. We do it with skepticism. Sometimes it hurts because we don't embrace technology the fastest, but at the end of the day, hospitality, and by the way, you don't know, the Greeks invented hospitality, and I'm Greek, so the hospitality is been there for thousands of years. And I bet you there's going to be another few thousands before we are dead as an industry. So I'm very optimistic about it.
I just add real quick. It's not a light switch on or off. You don't have to disrupt the entire industry or do nothing for decades. You have the opportunity. What I love also about Mews, you can do small experiments. Try a couple things. Even if it blows up in a small way, it's not going to destroy your business or your entire customer base. But at least try. Play a little bit with things in a way that you can learn and have risk-adjusted ways of moving your business forward with anything that we've talked about. So don't think about it's all or nothing, right?
Yeah, I totally agree.
I think, you say, what was one of the biggest challenges of creating that resistance to change? If you ever try to change a PMS 15 years ago, then I think once burnt, twice shy. Like, it was a process.
It was awful.
It was awful.
Yeah.
And, I was guilty. I was on site in hotels for 3 weeks at a time, training staff. I mean, you can't disrupt a business like that. And, thankfully, we're not in that case now. And I think that there's a lot of education around our teams around how we can do this more efficiently.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me on stage.